Welcome to On the Ground with Joe Trippi. I'm your host, Joe Trippi, and today I'm on the ground in Iowa. And in the 46 years I've been making the pilgrimage as a Democratic strategist to Iowa, I've learned a thing or two about what it takes to campaign in the Hawkeye State. And one of them is to be on the ground if you want to know what the hell's going on. Today I'm coming at you from Ironworkers Local 67 in Des Moines, and today's special guest is Iowa State Senator and U.S. Senate candidate Zach Wahls. If Zach looks familiar, that's because Zach went viral as a 19-year-old advocating on behalf of gay marriage, especially the marriage of his mother's, in front of the Iowa State House Judiciary Committee in 2011. If I've got the math right, that makes Zach about 34 right now, and he's continued to be an advocate for civil rights and workers' rights. Zach, thanks for joining us to give your perspective on your campaign and what's happening on the ground in Iowa today.
Really excited to be here, Joe. And you're exactly right. We just celebrated the 15th anniversary of that testimony from 2011. It's kind of wild. It's not old enough to drive a car, but I will definitely say, it's a lot of things have changed since then. But in some ways, a lot of things haven't changed since then. So really excited to be on today to talk about what's going on here in the Hawkeye State.
So why don't just first of all, give us your perspective on where this race is right now, not just in the primary, but with Hinson. I mean, just your take on things. And I know we're ways off from the primary, but it's going to be a hotly contested one. Two strong candidates. Just get initially your first take.
Yeah, well, I think at a very high level, it's important to understand how things are happening here on the ground. And you look at what has happened in Iowa. We have had 6 straight special elections for our state legislature over the last 12 months, where Democrats have put up massive overperformances relative to Trump's margin of victory in 2024 against Kamala Harris. In all 6 of those special elections, Democrats have outperformed their 2024 numbers by double digits. In 5 of those 6, it was 20-plus point overperformances. And the most recent one, which is in December, on December 30th, we had, and this is not an exaggeration, Joe, a 27-point overperformance relative to 2024. It's also important to know that Trump's approval rating in our state is sliding. And that's because people here are not happy with the policies that are coming out of this White House that Ashley Hinson, as a member of the U.S. House, has just been a complete rubber stamp for. She has voted on 4 different occasions to continue these tariffs that have been doing devastating damage to our state's agricultural economy. And it's not just the reciprocal tariffs that are hurting our export markets. It's also the input costs for a lot of farmers. So we're about a month and a half or so away from when some farmers are going to start getting in the field for the 2026 planting season. And whether it's seed, fertilizer, potash, pesticide, herbicide, fungicide, if your combine needs a new part, all of that is either, not all of it, but a huge amount of it is imported or manufactured domestically from imported parts. And so the cost for all of those things has really gone through the roof. And even though folks think of Iowa as more of an ag state, as you know from your time here, we are still a fairly robust light manufacturing sector. But we have been seeing layoffs across Iowa's manufacturing sector. Just a few weeks ago, Whirlpool, which is the next county over from where I live, announced that they're laying off several hundred workers. It's an extension of layoffs that were announced last year. And this is a plant that at its heyday employed 3,000 people. Today is down to about 1,000 employees, and concerns that could be falling even lower later on this year. So there is a real shift that has happened here on the ground. Voters are not happy about it. And that's part of why I think there's such an incredible opportunity this November here in Iowa.
Yeah, I was just looking at the Economist YouGov poll that came out in early March, and Trump's, where they do in all 50 states what Trump's approval is, and it was down to minus 12.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I'm helping Doug Jones in Alabama, where last one that did in February, Alabama was a plus 2.9 or 2.8. Plus. It's now plus 0.1 there. So, right. Again, over the month. And that's before we get to what may now be $4 gasoline and higher diesel prices, which are going to, I think, more impact exactly what you were talking about in terms of increased prices and hardship on everybody in the state. So, Look, I'm a big believer in strong primaries. I mean, I am. I mean, look at what happened with in Iowa with Obama and Hillary Clinton. Everybody was worried that the big fight in the caucuses and all the way through was going to, work real well for Obama. We saw one now in Texas. There's one going on here in the Senate race. I mean, how I got Ro Khanna, who I did his first campaign for Congress. He's supporting Josh Turek, and I've got Howard Dean, who's supporting you. This is going to be a hard-fought primary. I want to give you a chance to talk to people. Because I think there's similar policy positions between you and Josh. How do you see the case in the primary for why Zach Wahls?
Yeah, look, I think, what Democrats are trying to figure out, obviously, is how do we make sure that we win this seat?
Right. Yeah.
And I think that we've got a very strong case about, why we are the best opportunity to defeat Representative Hinson. Ashley Hinson is almost certainly going to be the Republican nominee this November. She was endorsed by Donald Trump on the third day of her campaign, pretty much cleared her primary field. But as we were just discussing, I do think that the fact that she's gone all in on Trump and MAGA is going to wind up being a pretty significant liability for her in November. To your point about the Trump approval rating in our state, this is a state that Trump won by 13 points, last year, or 2024, I should say. But you look at that minus 12, and that is a 25-point swing, in 13, 14 months here. And so I think it's a pretty unique opportunity. In order to win, though, from our perspective, electability is about the future. It's about a vision for the future of our state that a majority of Iowans want to vote for. And I believe that I'm the strongest candidate. We're proving that we can do it. We're leading in the polls. We're raising the most money, more support from actual Iowa donors than any of the other candidates who are in currently or have been in the race. We've been able to earn endorsements for this campaign from independents and even some Republicans. One story I always like telling, I was the first candidate in this race, Democrat or Republican, to receive a grassroots contribution from Iowans in all 99 counties. Our 99th county was Wright County up in North Iowa, not exactly the People's Republic of Iowa City. This is a county that Donald Trump won by double digits. But we got $25 from a gentleman named Gary. Gary is a retired small town lawyer. He's a Vietnam veteran, president of his local school board. And Gary's a registered Republican. And the reason why he was so excited to support the campaign was seeing, kind of a new generation of leaders stepping up. And he really resonated with our message about cleaning up the corruption in Washington, D.C., trying to tackle the influence of big money in our politics. And even though Gary and I don't agree on every issue, he's become one of our campaign's very best volunteers. And when we file our nominating petitions tomorrow, we're going to have over 150 signatures from Wright County. I don't know the last time that a Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate filed their nominating petitions with more than 100 signatures from Wright County, but I'm really proud that we're going to be one of them. And I think that's exactly kind of emblematic of the coalition that we're building to defeat Ashley Hinson in November. I'm the only candidate in the race who's actually represented small town and rural Iowa. I represented both Cedar and Muscatine County, which are both pivot counties, voted for Barack Obama in 2012, sure. Donald Trump in 2016. And having that experience, I think, is part of how we are able to resonate with a lot of those voters in small town and rural Iowa who our party has lost over the last decade and who we need to win back in order to have a real shot at winning this election in November.
Yeah, when I was started out as a $15 a day organizer in Jones County, which is pretty red and up there. And so, look, you're talking to somebody who knows exactly how important all 99 counties. You can't leave one of them. And for a Democrat to win, you've got to be everywhere and be reaching out. So, I
would say, Joe, is, I think you go back and you look at some of these maps, Barack Obama in 2012, yeah. Tom Harkin in 2008. I think it's unlikely that we're going to win back every single one of those counties in a single election cycle. But if we can close the margin and you go from losing 70-30 to 60-40, might not sound like a big change, but that's a 20-point swing, right? And so from our perspective, having a candidate who has that experience representing small town rural Iowa, served on the Ag Committee in the Iowa State Senate, have a clear vision for the future of what a new farm bill would look like if the Senate's not able to pass one this year before we actually win this election. And I will also just tell you, a lot of those issues are top of mind for a lot of Iowa voters. Doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Independent, or Republican.
Yeah, no, the thing is, you're looking at Trump's favorable or his approval. You know, 2018, you look at what happened in Iowa, we really did incredible. I mean, Iowa really way overperformed in terms of holding House seats and winning them, you know, in that vote. And that was in 18, you know, we're not talking about, you know, I know that he'd already done some damage to his approval in even in those first 2 years, but nowhere near the approval, the fall that's happened here in the second term. And so you've got to believe with Iowa, with a negative 12, the quality of the candidates, and I think also, you know, I think what's happening in some of the other state races, governor and else, I mean, it really have a strong, a really remarkable chance here. And I really believe this. Like to get your take, but obviously you're going to agree with this. But I think it's the literally, if you're going to look at how we Democrats actually have a shot at the Senate majority, that path has to, the thing that makes it possible is winning the Senate race against Hinson in November. And so the interest, I mean, I know there's not a whole lot of polling, but the few public, or the one public poll I did notice, showed that both you and that first of all, she's in the 40s. I mean, not even in the high 40s, mid low 40s against you, and basically it's a virtual tie in both cases, depending on how this all plays out. But it's an excellent shot here to actually not just win this nomination, but to actually help take the seat and have. I think Iowa could be the biggest impact on how both the House and Senate majorities move.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, Iowa's currently, you know, I think kind of in that conversation is seat 50, 51, 52, and the potential Democratic majority. Obviously, the swing that is happening in Iowa, it's very different from some of these other states. So, you know, Trump won Iowa by double digits. Now he's underwater in a big way. That swing that's unusual. You look at the states that are currently in this battleground. The other thing, to your point about 2018, this is the most recent Trump midterm. We won 3 of our 5 statewide races. We won 3 of the 4 U.S. House races. We came within spitting distance of winning the governor's mansion. And that was at a time when I think things were looking very different in the economy compared to where they are today. So we think that there is a unique opportunity, but we didn't have a Senate seat on the ballot in 2018. And so we're really excited that we have one of those here today. And I think that as you look at, you know, how Iowa stacks up, one of the other things that we have going for us is that Iowa is a much less expensive media market compared to a state like Texas. You know, estimates obviously vary a little bit, but our estimation is that a contribution in Iowa goes about 15 times as far as it does in Texas. So, you know, a max contribution this cycle, double max, is $7,000. That's worth about $100,000 in Texas. And so in terms of folks looking about where their investment kind of makes a bigger difference, Iowa is definitely one of those places. We're going to have a really strong coordinated campaign this year. You mentioned the governor's race. My friend Rob Sand, state auditor, just filed his petitions yesterday. I believe broke a record in terms of having almost 25,000 nominating petitions that were signed. And that's obviously a great sign of the strength of the campaign that he's building as well. And so in terms of, you know, what the opportunities are, I think the governor's race very much in play, our Senate campaign. I think that I've got a unique matchup against Ashley Hinson. I can get into that here in just a second. Sure. But we also have 2 very competitive U.S. House races that are already on red to blue, Iowa's 1st and 3rd congressional races. And don't sleep on the 2nd congressional district either. This is the one that Ashley Hinson is vacating in order to run for this U.S. Senate seat. I think we've got a real chance to flip that seat as well.
Yeah, I talked to Laura Bellin, and she agreed that the 2nd district is a real possibility. And also, I mean, so with Rob Sands and his capacity to organize and build up in the, you know, where he's from, I think Polk County looks like it's got a really strong organization going, better than 2018, I think. And with those 3 House races all in play too, you could have this sort of perfect storm where, and that's why I want to get you to the point where your case between you and Hinson and what the strength is there, because I really do believe it's why I'm here. I really wanted to help put Iowa in focus here for our you know, for the Lincoln Square folks, so that they can see why it's important to put money in here, pick your candidate, get behind them, and let's get ready for November, because I think it's going to be a big one. But again, you can just go into the contrast between you and Hinson and why you think that's going to make a difference.
I would love to. I'll tell you, so when Ashley first got in the race, this is back in September, folks sometimes don't know who she is. She's been in the House for a couple terms, but she doesn't have a huge nationwide profile. And so kind of the shorthand, this is September of last year. She's kind of like the Marjorie Taylor Greene of the Midwest. Although the problem, Joe, now is I need a new comparison, because Marjorie Taylor Greene looks pretty moderate compared to Ashley Hinson these days, which is, it kind of speaks volumes about just kind of how far off the deep end Ashley has gone. I mentioned she's been a rubber stamp for this agenda out of the White House, and that has really pushed costs through the roof. You feel the squeeze in so many different places. The other big theme that has really emerged over the course of the campaign, we've been to 66 of the 99 counties. We're going to do our 250th campaign event tonight. I've had the chance to visit with, well over 10,000 Iowans across the various events that we've done. Corruption has really emerged as something that is on the minds of a lot of people. They see the connection between the Trump family enriching themselves over $1 billion from this cryptocurrency scam. They see the self-dealing of this administration. They see the bailouts for Argentina before farmers in Iowa were able to get the support that they needed because of the harm from the trade war. And so this corruption has really emerged as a big theme. We always talk about the three core pillars for us. Number one is overturning Citizens United. Number two, I've become a very strong supporter of term limits. I'll tell you, I'm a new dad. My wife and I had our first child 2 years ago. Someone who's changed a lot of diapers in the last 2 years. I have a new appreciation for Mark Twain's observation that politicians and diapers should be changed regularly and for the same reason. And then finally, banning members of Congress from owning, trading, selling stocks while they're serving in Congress. Those are things that are supported by a vast majority of Democrats, independents, and Republicans. And even though voters may not necessarily be able to explain all the ins and outs of campaign finance law, they understand the profound and corrupting influence that a lot of the special interests have on our politics. And I got an education in this. This is my very first year in the state Senate. I was elected in 2018. So 2019, we started to see these big out-of-state companies come into Iowa, buy mobile home communities and trailer parks, which is one of the last forms of unsubsidized housing that is affordable for a lot of Iowa families that are, working class or starting their home ownership journey. And these big companies bought 3 communities in my district, this one company out in Utah, and they started jacking up the monthly lot rent. This is what people have to pay each month to park the trailer there, by as much as 50%, 60%, even 70% in some cases, from 1 month to the next, right? Not over 12 months, from June to July. Right. And so I was outraged by this. And so I was able to get a bill through the state Senate 48-0, which does not happen every day, especially for a freshman legislator who's stuck in the minority, that would have given my constituents some basic protections under Iowa law. We sent that bill over to the House of Representatives, and I was told it's a done deal. Who could possibly vote against this? And then 2 days later, I get called over for a meeting behind closed doors, go in, there's a conference table. On one side is a Republican representative who's sympathetic to what we're trying to do. On the other side of the table is the corporate lobbyist representing those big companies, smirking at me. And sitting next to him is State Representative Ashley Hinson. And Joe, I was in the room and I watched with my own eyes as Ashley Hinson killed my bipartisan bill as a favor for that lobbyist. And what I found out later was that he had contributed to her reelection campaign the cycle before, and many of the folks in his association were helping Ashley Hinson lay the groundwork to run for the U.S. House of Representatives in 2020. And so when we talk about the connection between an economy that is working great for those big out-of-state investment companies and padding their profit margins, but that is hurting Iowans, squeezing them in the most basic, necessities of life, housing, that and the corruption of our politics, that is the connection between those two things. And people understand that's a huge problem, because it's not just happening with trailer parks. It is happening now in industry after industry after industry. We see it in healthcare. We see it in nursing homes. We see consolidation in the ag economy, in so many different places. And so I think, the fact that we have this very clear vision about challenging corporate power and consolidation, taking on the corruption of big money in our politics, and putting forward a positive vision for the future of Iowa, especially our small towns and rural communities, by making new investments in public education, cleaning up our drinking water, and making sure that we are investing in Main Street, not just bailing out Wall Street. That is something that is resonating, and I think that's exactly the message that we need to win this seat in November.
Yeah, the corruption's pretty unbelievable. And when you actually look at the insider trading that's happening in Congress and the Senate right now, so many of them literally trading stock in companies that they are supposed to regulate. Magically and mystically, the day after or before the regulation gets taken out, they've loaded up and profit from it. And of course, the Trump and Trump family too. So I think
one additional point I can make on that: people know that's a bipartisan problem. It is not just a Democrat problem or problem, right? People see that there's some real problems in both parties, and I think just go back to your point earlier about the primary. It's one of the reasons why, early in this campaign, I made clear I think it's time for new leadership in the Senate. I have made clear that I'm not planning to vote for Chuck Schumer for leader because I think we do need to have new leadership in our party. And I think that in order to defeat Ashley Hinson in November, we have to draw that contrast of being willing to challenge your own party leadership. That is something that I've had, that I've done here in our state. I've got some political scars to show for it. And I think that's a real point of distinction here in the primary. And that's also going to be a key piece for us of how we make that contrast with Representative Hinson in the general election. Because if you're looking to try to win over Iowans who our party has lost, you have to be able to rebuild that trust. And that starts with Iowans knowing that you're running for the right reasons to represent our state, not just to work for party bosses.
Yeah, I look, having worked for Doug Jones in Alabama in a Senate race where you couldn't get at least in the beginning, anybody to return your calls. I also do understand though why it's important. It goes both ways, because obviously when you get the nomination, there's going to be help, hopefully, coming from people and other, who want to see the seat you win. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but I totally get what I don't think. Part of what I think is going on is that when you come up, and this because you watched it in the legislature and the Senate, when you're coming up through leadership, what's that about? It's been traditionally about being able to hold the caucus together and then reaching across the aisle to get enough votes with the other leadership to actually compromise and get something done. I think that's where Schumer and leadership, that's what they were kind of built to do. And now with our moment where it is, they're just not, they weren't groomed and built to be the opposition, the kind of opposition leadership you need against someone like Trump and MAGA. It's not anybody's fault. I mean, I don't have I'm no love lost for Schumer, but I'm just saying I agree that it would be good if he had done what Nancy Pelosi had done and moved on. But
fundamentally, I think it's also a question of priority, right?
Yeah.
Leader Schumer's on the record, this is a few years ago, but said that our party can write off blue collar, working class, rural voters. Because for every voter we lose, right, we're going to pick up 2 in the suburbs. And that was just wrong. And I don't think that math really works anywhere, but it definitely does not work in Iowa.
Yeah.
So they made that calculus, but it was those of us here in Iowa who are ultimately paying the price for that decision. I would also point to, even when Democrats did have the majority in the Senate, did not do things like prioritizing a farm bill, making that a key focus of the caucus. We're obviously, now that's lapsed. We're more than 2 years overdue for a new farm bill. The House Ag Committee just got their draft through markup. Not at all clear what the floor vote is going to look like. E15, that deadline has come and gone. And so I think that there's a lot of things where the national party, it would be really good to have a new Democratic senator from Iowa who can speak authoritatively on some of those issues, can talk about why it is really important that we have a farm bill that works for our state, that gives farmers the supports that they need to kind of get back on a more stable footing, to challenge some of the consolidation that we've seen in the ag sector, and also have a positive vision for what the future of farming is going to look like in our state. We've got a lot of huge challenges that are on the horizon. And I'm confident that we can meet them, but it's going to require some new thinking, some new ideas, and that's exactly why I'm running for the U.S. Senate.
Cool. Hey, Zach, I think we're running towards the end of our time, so I want to give you the chance here to ring us out. We'll also be, after you're done, we'll be rolling in directly into your, after I say thanks and all that, we'll be rolling directly into your spot, one of your spots, your intro spots in the campaign, so that people can see that too. But I'd just like to give you an opportunity to make a direct pitch and also tell people where they can get you online. We have it up on the screen, but
how they can help.
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is zachwahls.com. That's ZACHWAHLS.com. You can also just put it into Google, and it doesn't really matter how you spell it. Google will point you in the right place. We're on all the big social media platforms. I will tell you, I guess I'm not totally sure when exactly this is going to air. The last fundraising deadline that we have before the primary, that deadline's coming up on March 31st. So if you've been looking for a good time to make your first contribution to a really promising Senate campaign here in Iowa, part of that path back to 51 seats in the Senate, this is a great time to make that contribution. If you want to volunteer, we've got plenty of remote volunteer opportunities as well. All the information is on our website. It's really exciting for us to have the chance to visit today. I'm really glad to know that there are a lot of folks. I feel like this race has been a little under the radar for a few months, but it is definitely, I think, starting to get more and more attention. And we would love to have your support and win back the Senate seat and bring some real change to the U.S. Senate.
Zach, thanks for being with us, and thanks for being one of the first guests on the Ground with Joe Trippi. And this time it's on the ground in Iowa. And thank you for explaining where things are and introducing people to your campaign.
It's my pleasure. Thanks, Joe.
I'm Zach Wahls. Growing up, I was an Eagle Scout. And it might sound a little old-fashioned, but I still live by those scouting values. Most important to me is that a scout is brave. I learned to stand up for what's right, especially when it's hard. That's what I've done as a state senator, and that's why I'm running for the United States Senate. I'll stand up to leaders of both parties because they're not delivering for us. I'm a sixth-generation Iowan and a new generation of Democrat. I believe in the old Democratic values of hard work and family, not handouts for billionaires and insiders. Standing up for workers' rights and civil rights, like I always have. When I was 19, I defended the freedom to marry for all Iowans, including families like mine with two moms.
We're Iowans. We don't expect anyone to solve our problems for us. We'll fight our own battles. We just hope for equal and fair treatment from our government.
That's not what we're getting right now. Our leaders have failed us, and we are the ones paying the price.
Well, we all are going to die.
When Joni Ernst was elected, she said,
"Let's make them squeal."
But Joni broke her promise to us.
We need a new senator, one with the courage to fight for all our families. We need a senator for us.
I'll be that senator. Scout's honor.